Hi, I'm Siobhan Muir, and today because I'm working on this little miniature, which is named American Retro Style Forest Times. I'm building this model, and I'm going to do it because I wanted to buy a book nook, but they were really expensive, like prohibitively. But that meant that they made all the stuff, they did all the work. So instead of money, I'm putting time into making my own, and it's just like a little bedroom, and I've built quite a bit of it. But today, what I thought I would do is I would build some curtains. But that means that there's a lot that goes into them. The first thing we need to do is you have to make, see this little piece of wire? This little piece of wire will end up being a hook that allows you to hang the curtains on the curtain rod, which is another piece of wire, right? So you're going to end up bending this in such a way that it hooks into the curtain and it hangs over the wire. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my handy dandy bent tweezers, which are of course covered in glue because, well, they work really well for gluing itty bitty things together. So what they say is you want to take the top 2 or 3 millimeters, and you're going to curl it in a literal curl, because what you want it to do is you want it to be, this is the hook that goes around the wire for the curtain rod. All right, so first you curl the top bit like that. Sometimes you'll have to manipulate it a little bit and see if you can get it to curl the way you want to, because sometimes it gets kind of twitchy, but you want it to be kind of rounded. So it'll go around the curtain rod, okay? And then at the bottom of this itty bitty thing in my fingers, which is really hard to see, you'll fold it like in a V, because the V in this thing will end up going through the curtain itself. So there you're gonna make 20 of these. 20. Fun. So give me a second and I will make a bunch of these. You don't need to see me do all of them all at once, and I will show you what they look like when they're done. Okay? Okay, so this is what they look like when they're finished. Here's 5 of them. They're gonna go, haven't done all 20, although I did do this one. So they're all through the little curtain. But that's what they should look like. Kind of, the rounded part of the top that'll go for the rod, and then these little points at the bottom that will go for the curtain itself. All right? And when it's done, it'll more or less look like this. This is the small curtain. I'm going to show you how to make the big curtain. The small one's small. But it should hang on the end of the curtain rod like that. So it looks really cute when it's done, but it's kind of a pain in the patootie to do it. So that's what it looks like. So what we'll do now, instead of making the little curtain, we'll make the big curtains. On this piece, they have a garden entrance, and you basically hang the curtains on these windows essentially. So you need a large curtain. So they give you more of this lace, and you cut it into 5 centimeters by 9. Okay, and then you glue a thin piece of fabric, some of the white fabric we had in the earlier parts, to the top, so it makes kind of something that you can poke holes through. Now what you want to do is, since you're only going to need 5 curtain hooks for this, the easiest thing to do is to take a thumbtack, because this is about the size of that wire. You take a thumbtack, and actually I'm going to use you lay it down here, and you poke a hole all the way through the fabric. You want it to come all the way through, so it makes it really easy to see the hole, and you will eventually, kind of mess with it a little bit to make sure that the hole is ready, so that one of these little hooks, I'm just going to show you what it looks like when you go through. Ta-da! That one. The other one was just difficult. See? So then you actually literally hang the curtain. So we now need to do 4 more holes. I would start on either end when you push it through, because that'll give you a sense of where the halfway point is, and so that you can get it to be relatively even, right? So about halfway between these 2 holes is about here. And then about halfway between these 2 holes is about there. And then halfway between these 2 is about there. And then you should have 5 holes that you can stick your little hooks through. I'm not going to do this right now because I have more work to do on this curtain, but you will eventually stick the holes or stick the hooks through those holes, and then you can hang it on your curtain rod. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to glue this little piece of lace on the bottom. This will give your large curtain kind of little elegance, because that's the idea, is you want to have a little bit of elegance, because what you'll end up doing is curling this thing together and putting it on the curtain rod so it hangs, and you want to have this little decoration at the bottom. So, all right, and then this you glue to that. Leave the little dots hanging, that gives it an extra little design, and just glue it to the lace. So 6 of 1, they're both lace, so it's kind of hard to know where to put the glue. But what I'm gonna do is spread glue on this and use my really high-tech tool, the end of a zip tie, and kind of spread this glue around on all of this lace. The idea is to use the glue to glue it down onto more lace. So it's kind of like, let's glue air to air. So then what you do is you want to hold that and glue it down, cloth to cloth, lace to lace, air to air. Now, if it doesn't glue initially, you can always glue it on the back side, again, because it's going to go all the way through. And sometimes that's what you need. You are going to get glue all over your fingers. Don't worry, that is totally normal. So what we'll do is we'll set this aside and let it dry. And we'll be back in a little bit to show you what it's like to bind that sucker up and do, because what you're eventually going to do is bind it together with a even smaller piece of fabric. And you're going to, put the hooks in. So when that dries, I'll be back to show you what it looks like when we bind it all up. The end of the rods, to keep your curtains from sliding off, ostensibly, curtain rods have these little end pieces, right? So what you need to do is you have this yellow backed sticky paper, and you want to, remember the dimensions, you want to do it 2 centimeters wide, which are 2 centimeters wide, and or long, I should say, and you want 3 millimeters in width. So basically, I have my handy dandy little thing. So I'm going to measure 3 millimeters, which is right there. 1, 2, because we're going to do 2 of these while I cut 1. And I will do that on this side too. 3, 1, 2, 3. Alright, so then what you do is you make sure that you can get a line across. There's one here. And there. Okay, and then the other thing you need to do is you only have to measure 2 centimeters in length, right? So you can pick an edge. I'm going to pick this other edge, and we have 2 centimeters in length. So, oh good, I lined it up. That's encouraging. To there. This is when you do not use the fabric scissors. Don't use the fabric scissors. You're cutting paper. Save this stickered paper because you have no idea if you're going to need more of it and you don't want to lose it. Now what you're going to do, you have to peel the yellow paper off the back. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take one end of your curtain rod and you're going to stick it and wrap it. Alright, just roll it up like a paper towel. And ta-da! You suddenly have a ready-made end of your curtain rod. Alright, but only do one end, okay? Only do one end of this. Save the other piece, right? Only do one end because if you do both ends, then you can't slide your curtains on. You want to have one end when there's no, and guess how I learned this? I made the other curtain rod and I put the other end and went, oh. Then you wait to do the other end to finish the curtains. Just say it. All right, so I'm gonna set it aside. So it'll end up looking like this little curtain rod, it'll end up looking like this, but you don't really want to do this before the curtain's on it. I did, so that'll be a challenge. So yeah, I got the one curtain rod. Now we're gonna work on the curtain. So here's the curtain, and I've pushed holes through it, and then we glued on the lace at the bottom. So it kind of looks good. Now what you have to do, see this itty bitty piece of fabric? Yeah, that itty bitty piece of fabric is gonna gather up your curtain. You're gonna do it where you're gonna gather up the curtain near the bottom, right? Because that you wanna kind of gather it up toward the bottom. So what I'm gonna do with this thing is, I'm gonna do a couple things. One, I'm gonna roll the lace with the glue and the lace together. It makes it kind of stiff. I'm gonna roll it because keeping it together makes it really easy to gather stuff up, to put the tiny fabric around. The other thing I'm going to do is I am going to rumple, for lack of a better word, the curtain at the top. But I want to make sure that the holes are in the back because that's where the hooks are going to go. All right? So you want to make sure that the part that goes forward has no hole in it, and the hole is in the back, right? And you just kind of fold this stuff. It doesn't have to be perfectly even. I mean, it would be nice, but honestly, it doesn't have to be perfectly even. You just want to get it kind of accordion folded, all right? And the reason you're doing this is because eventually you're going to squish the curtain all the way over to one side, and you want to make sure that it just goes without arguing too much. So I accordion folded it, and I'm just going to squeeze it a little bit because with the fabric and the glue, it makes it like it wants to actually stay. And if you look at real curtains, they're the same way. They do those folds to make them just hang the way you want them to hang. Most of the holes are in the back, and that's kind of what you want. All right, so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to curl this up again. And then I'm kind of pinch the lace together toward the bottom. And then I'm going to do the fun job of wrapping this little tiny piece of fabric around it. Pick the side you want to be the front and glue it the opposite of that. All right? So you can see this little tiny fabric piece. What I'm going to do is I'm going to glue this side of it and that side, because you want to make sure you have the glue where you want it, on that side and on the inside of this piece. Okay? Then I'm going to use tools because fingers sometimes work and sometimes don't. I'll fold this piece. I use my fingernail to hold it, And then I'm gonna use that. And then I'm just gonna sit here because you want it to glue shut. And it may or may not want to stay there because it's ornery like that. Because, you know, it just may or may not want to stay. So I'm gonna sit here for a little bit and I'm gonna glue this and then I'll be back when it's done, okay? All right, so what you saw me trying to glue these things together, and here's what it should eventually look like. It'll kind of be curled at the bottom. The gathering of the fabric will be down there, and then it'll hang because eventually what you're gonna do is have them hang, be more or less, so because they're gonna hang right about here, right? So they're gonna cover these windows. That's what they're supposed to look like because the curtain rod will go across the top. And so there are 2 of them, of the big ones. Ta-da. And I even managed to get myself to do the little ones gathered up as well. So there's 2 of the little ones like that. Now this one I did an accordion fold, this one I did, and they both have to fit on this little tiny curtain rod. So we'll see how that adventure goes. But in the meantime, I have 2 curtains and I have a bunch of little hooks that I will fit into the curtains, and then they will hang on this rod, and then I will put the other end on that so they abut to the ends like that. All right, so that's another adventure. All right, so what we're going to do now is we have to build some of these walls, and there's some little decorative pieces that go on the outside of the walls. For this one, this is the inside wall of the bedroom, right? So it's going to have a nice little white frame on the inside, and we'll glue that down. Thank goodness they're pre-made, so I don't have to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this frame and I'm just going to glue the outer edge. Right? So then you put it down and you kind of center it on the hole that is the window. Press it down pretty tightly. You're going to see excess glue come out the edges. That's okay. The nice thing about this particular glue is it might look white now, but it dries clear. But that's what you have this handy dandy zip tie for, right? I know it doesn't look like a high-tech tool, but it's actually really useful. This will help you scrape away the excess glue so you don't get too many bubbles. And while holding this here, you can also do the inside of this bit a little, and then you get a nice clean look to it. And it'll dry on its own. You just want to get it stuck down, and then that'll be the bedroom window. And then I did the other one. This will be the side window, so that it'll look like this when it's done. Now on this piece, on the inside you're going to put the curtain rod, but on the outside there's this little extra decorative piece that's supposed to go right there. So what we'll do is we'll just, glue it down. And again, take that zip tie and get rid of the excess glue. Ta-da! That's what it should look like. And of course you'll have to let it dry. And that's all I'm going to do today. But when we come back next time, this is the floor. We'll put the whole thing together. See, the neat thing about this is like the garden gate sort of thing. So it sits right like that. And because this is the little deck, and you'll put stuff out on the deck like that. But when we come back, we'll show, once all this stuff is dry, we'll be able to start putting together the walls, and then we can add the little details like the lamps and the skylight and the curtains, if the curtains work. Hopefully they work. And then you'll be able to see it come together as a building. And then we'll add the details of the furniture later. But anyway, I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining me.